I usually don't put my 2 cents in on things like this, but from personal experience regarding this Sadiksha Kuniki case, as somebody who has traveled from to the Dominican only a couple of times, it's important to note the biggest misconception with these places like the Dominican is that it is not still a third world country. Another popular misconception is that tourism is their main revenue in these countries, and therefore that equates to them somehow being protective of the tourists. Unfortunately, that is just not the situation. And if you have been to these resorts, one, you know that the Dominican is much less, even if you are going to a 5-star resort, you will experience rolling blackouts because it is still connected to Haiti. You are basically in Haiti. It is just because there is an invincible border, it doesn't mean the supplies available to you are not much like Haiti. And Haiti is not a developed country. It is just as beautiful as the Dominican. However, the corruption in both of these places is their main dollar. That is their main source of revenue. And from what what you can see with your own eyes, even if you are just on the beach, there will be people approaching you to sell you things like jewelry, anywhere from jewelry to drugs. And they are very territorial over who gets to sell you these things on the beach. So that is regulated by the cartels. There is nowhere on these resorts that, especially young girls, are safe from the potential of being human trafficked. And I say this with personal experience, both times when I went as a 19-year-old and when I also went as a 36-year-old or a 36-year-old mother of 2 for a destination wedding. And what happened to me personally is while my husband and son were having a nap, I decided I'm going to walk down the beach to the open market. So this was like an open air mall with different gift shops connected on the beach in between the resorts. Security everywhere. But again, I did separate from my friends and the people that were with the wedding party, thinking that, of course, I'm safe. I'm on the resort. This is a misconception. So the first store I went into, I saw a bracelet that was roughly around $400, and it had the stone that was apparently rare to their whatever, the mines going or whatever, with the blue stone. I forget the name of it. However, it was about $400, like I said, so it was in a glass case. I had wanted to put it on my credit card, and the gentleman, who actually was a man from Toronto, and us being from Mississauga at the time, you would think that there should be a level of trust. Looking back now, even the people, if they own a shop there, just because they are from out of country or from the US or Canada, does not ensure your safety. They have been permitted, as I see, because they are working for these cartels. So the store accepted credit card, and however, when it came time to purchase the bracelet, and I said, okay, well, I'll pay by credit card. Can you get it out of the glass? It was a short white man with, I believe, like reddish hair, and then 2 local Dominican guys. There is no door on this store. You can see the beach pretty much from where I'm standing. However, I am feeling this guy's mood is turning hostile in a way. And suddenly he says, you know what? We don't take credit card anymore. I only take cash. And he says, I have a limo. I have a bank machine in the back alley right behind the store here that has a bank machine in the trunk. And obviously, I'm not that dumb. I said, well, I'm not going to go to a bank machine in your limo in an alleyway. I could just go back to the resort if I wanted to pay cash. However, I don't. So he started to get angry at this, at the fact that I don't know if looking back, if he just kept repeating this in a way, because no, it wasn't really a question. It was that this is what you're going to do. You're going to go to the back alley and there's an alleged limo with a bank machine in the trunk. Now, obviously that wouldn't make sense because I have a resort steps away that would have a bank machine. In that moment, by the grace of God, my friend's dad walked in. And this is at the point where the guy was already waving his arms, basically yelling at me, but getting really hostile that I wasn't just into this idea of going into the limo alleyway bank machine. In that moment, my friend's dad walked in and said, what is going on in here? And I explained to him, he said, no, she's leaving. She's not going to your bank machine limo. Blah, blah, blah. And then my friends followed close behind him saying where, we were looking for you, what's going on type of thing. But that is an open air market. That was the middle of the day. And I was just a mother there with a wedding party. And I am not saying this is the fault of the Dominican people, because the two local guys that were in there honestly looked almost like they didn't know what was going on. They could tell that this guy's behavior, I don't know. Again, it was so fast, but that is how fast that some girl can go missing. And I was not inebriated. I was not, on the prowl looking for anything but this bracelet. And then, so the people that are working at the resorts, not only are they basically hired to, to be able to sort of turn a blind eye to these things. And when resorts and areas and countries are run by cartel, the people that own these places have got to get permission from these cartels. That is how I see it. It has nothing to do with the reflection of the Dominican people, but it is the same thing as there is an expectation of friendliness and almost flirtiness on some level, because they are probably told to make the guests feel welcome. A lot of middle-aged women do go down there looking for a good time, the same with middle-aged men. And people do go down there looking for things just like they do in other countries like Cuba, like the Philippines, like Thailand, like a lot of these other countries that are known for this. Haiti. Okay, these are places that are definitely known for human trafficking, and crime is their main source of income, from government to the hospitality industry. So for people that think even some white guy, a tourist, would go down there and be able to murder somebody on the beach, and that even cartels are very protective of who gets to commit crimes in their territory. So nobody would be covering for that guy. If anything, they would have pinned it on him, perhaps. So there is not a time we have visited the Dominican, whether it was when I was 19 or 36, that we were not violated. And the people that you would go to for help like the owner of the excursion. When they are presented with any kind of wrongdoing on their employee's part, they are very quick to dismiss you and even say, why would we believe you when this person has been working for us for so long? So not only are you up against that kind of corruption, but for people that keep saying, oh, they're so this is what I have always heard, they're so protective of the tourist dollar, and oh, the tourism, they don't want this, they don't want anything interfering with their tourism. They do not care about tourism dollar. The sale of on the black market, like the whatever, crime pays way more than your $300 all inclusive. And I mean, you can get it is very cheap to go to the Dominican compared to other places in the Caribbean. And that is why you will get, it doesn't matter if you're at a 5-star resort, you will face things like the gift shop having no supplies because they are very limited to supplies. Like, I'm not sure. I don't know why a gift shop would not have a baby bottle and basic necessities for anybody that's going to be staying on this resort. So what in turn happens when it's scarce on the resort, it almost makes it so you have to leave the resort. So these are things that are generally not safe to do. So you either have to go without, as well as there is a communication barrier because they're predominantly Spanish speaking. So I think, because when you would go to the gift shop, you might go and you put your suntan lotion down to purchase it and the price changes, or they'll never give you back the right change. And then when you try to say to them, the thing is only 60 pesos, I just gave you 100 pesos and you've given me 10 pesos back, they have no idea. Suddenly they don't understand English, and everybody. And now this was everywhere. I have even had a theory about, I've never gone at all where people did not get food poisoning. Again, all of this is designed to get you to have to go and spend money elsewhere. So then you are going to the hospital. You are paying for whatever. And I have been both times where people have had to be hospitalized because in Mexico and in the Dominican because of food poisoning on the resort. And it's usually at the restaurants, not the buffets. However, all of these things, the rolling blackouts, like all of these things are by design. But the myth that tourism is their main dollar, these are all inclusives. They're unlimited drinking, unlimited food. What money do you think they're making? 7 days room, like a hotel room. And they will charge what, $600, $800, flight included? What kind of money do you think they're making? And most people, the teens that go down there, they don't spend any money. So that's what they're doing. They're drinking. So again, you're not going to get law enforcement's help. You might, but again, the entire system is corrupt. And corruption is their main source of revenue, not tourism. So anytime I hear that is wrong. That is just wrong, and it won't make it to it's almost odd that it's even on the news, to be honest with you. It's almost strange that it would even make the news, because things like that happen so often over there, that what would be really different about this case. And you can clearly see in the video of this girl at the bar where she is at the bar, she is getting sick, other kid is getting sick, and those two guys at the bar who look like regulars, who do not look like tourists, who look like Dominicans, owners of whatever, okay, they are looking at the drink. You can see them in the background of her when she is on video shopping in that mall. That thing with all the stores or whatever she is in. Okay, but that looks like an open air, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You can see those men lurking in the background. They could have spiked her drink and basically just followed her around until the effects of it took hold. Like, but to think that even if she went back to her room, it doesn't necessarily mean she'd be safe there either. So the hotel staff covers for the hotel staff. The people on the resort are hired because there's a lot of people that go down there. It's their vacation time. They pay big money for odd, strange things that would not be legal here, or whatever, if they're from the States, if they're whatever home country they are from, and they pay big money for that. And that goes on all over, but a lot of the time, so that's where they're making their money. Scams, crime, human trafficking, and being able to sell a human to some millionaire for fun time or for whatever they do with people on the human trafficking circuit is going to make them a lot more money than the money she brought with her tourism dollar. So, and people that don't drink and go to these places, again, can become a target as well, because you are not paying. You're not spending any money. You're not drinking. You're not, so again, you've got to spend the money somehow. And if it has to be whatever, but even the fact that she's walking around with her friends in that mall, people might think, oh no, she's safe. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You would think so. But who knows? She could have accidentally, been lured into the limo for the bank machine, and, nobody came to check up on her. But aside from that, her friends leaving her, going on an excursion, there's a certain amount of guilt there that what friends. So this is where it doesn't do your children justice to shelter them and not educate them on what it is really like, that there are no safe zones when you are in a third world country. And it is not a reflection, again, of the Dominican people, but the ones that are hired to work on the resorts are going to be probably mostly corrupt. And that is just how it is. And that is my experience personally. So once again, crime is there, I would say, in corruption, human trafficking, whatever it may be, is their main source of tourism. And just because, you are still, to me, when I was there, just because you're on a resort, you are still in Haiti. So this is an island, and that is sort of, you don't lose sight of that. That if the Dominican were so prosperous, it would bleed over into Haiti. But it's the crime that bleeds over and the poverty that bleeds over from Haiti, not the Dominicans' prosperity and whatever second world country class. I don't know, but it is not that. And that is the same for any place that you go that is run primarily by a corrupt government. So the people on the resort, they are not making big money. They are working like 12 hours and then having to take a bus somewhere, getting paid very little. So when there statistically, where there are places where poverty is high, so is crime. And it leaves people with no real opportunity to not partake in the criminal activities out of necessity and survival. And so this is why the people of these countries that choose not to be corrupt, or just are not given the same opportunities, I suppose, to will not prosper. So just like the resorts, you don't just walk in and be like, oh, there's a place for lease. I think I'll set up a business here. I'm from anywhere, Canada. That's not happening. Like, everything would have to go through whichever cartel has territory over that specific resort. So, it would be pretty easy to cover it up, I suppose. I don't know. That's my 2 cents.